Now, Barbara, were you raised in the truth?
No, Grace. I was raised a Catholic in Long Island, about 30 miles from here. I was very distressed about life in general. When I was 14 years old, I came to the conclusion that when you were successful, it was because you were dishonest. When you got old or wealthy and satisfied, you died. So I felt, what futility. And I used to ask my mother questions about the reason for life. It distressed her because she could give me no answers as a Catholic. 2 weeks after my last question period with my mother, I was at my girlfriend's house, and a sister came by, and she, the lady of the house asked me to get rid of her. So I went to the door and told her that the lady of the house was busy. Well, the sister, and I didn't know who Jehovah's Witnesses were, but the sister was a wise sister, and just because I was a kid, she didn't dismiss me, just didn't walk away. She said, asked me questions about the Catholic Church and about my own feelings. Well, we discussed the Bible for 1.5 hours, much to the anger of my girlfriend and her mother. Well, I begged her to come to my house. I said, even though I'm a kid, it's okay with my mom. I know it will be all right. Come anyway. Well, she came, and we set up a Bible study. My mom sat in, and we had our first Bible study, which lasted 4 hours.
Wow.
And they kept on going like that. And in 3 months, we were out in field service. In 6 months, we were baptized.
Wow.
It was the beginning of a wonderful life for me. I was never unhappy again. It was about this time that my family moved to Miami, Florida. And another adventure opened up.
Now, Joe, around this time is when you were at Betel in the 50s. So what was going on in your life? Because this will help us see how you and Barbara got together.
Well, I was working in the press room, really enjoying Bethel and the congregation here. And my mother and father had moved back to Long Island, where they'd lived before. And so occasionally I got to visit with them, and she would call. This one time she called and she said, I have a blonde I want you to meet.
Uh-oh.
And I said, Mother, I am not interested in a blonde. But we went out, but anyway, I think I've hit a nerve here. So, you're beautiful when you're angry, They say.
I won't get you anywhere. Let me defend myself. When I was in Miami, when the announcement came about the convention in 1958, Yankee Stadium and the Polo Grounds, I came up to work in the Adams Street factory as a commuter from Long Island, and I worked in the rooming department.
Wow. Were you one of the first commuters?
No, not one of the first commuters, Grace.
Doesn't go back that far.
No, there were more. There were some before me. But I was in the same congregation as his mother. I didn't even know she had a son in Bethel. I didn't know she thought we'd be a good match. She invited me to her house for a get-together. And anyway, they were dancing. We could dance, but, it was...
Go ahead.
So, Joe avoided me because he knew what his mother had, on her mind. So he asked every girl in the room to tango, and not one of them knew how. So they said they couldn't tango. And when he got up to me, the last sister, I knew how to tango. And so we tangoed. And, the crossover
For 31
step.
years we've been tangoing.
They do a crossover step. Anyway, he hit my shoe with his foot, and he broke my shoe. But I fixed his wagon. He's been buying my shoes ever since, and I love shoes.
Well, what I can... And I can say, well, Mother knew best, I guess, since we've been married so long. But if they had a little disagreement among themselves, my mother would come to me about it. I said, don't look at me. You're the one that picked her. So I was able to get out of that one good.
Tell us some of your experiences, Barbara.
Well, while we were engaged, I went back to Florida, to West Palm Beach, where my parents lived. And my assignment was to work and pioneer in Palm Beach, Florida. It was a fascinating territory, a territory of the rich and famous. Many, many fine experiences were had there. One of the first persons to ever come in the truth in Palm Beach was a woman I studied with who lived in a big mansion on the ocean. She's a witness to this day, and she was she keeps up with us. She writes us even. She's in her 80s now. One time I knocked at, it was a huge fence. We called it a compound down there, and it was the Kennedy compound when John F. Kennedy was president. And usually you couldn't get any answer at those places, but somebody opened the door, invited me in, and I placed literature with the Kennedys.
Wow.
Never could find them again at home. That one was nice. Oh, another one was really different. I introduced myself, and the man said to me, "Come in, come in. I just saw Nathan."
Nathan who?
That's what I said. I said, "Nathan who?" He said, "Nathan Noor, your boss." Now, this is 1959. He said, "We're negotiating. I'm an attorney. They want to buy the Squibb building." 1959, 10 years before they bought it. They were negotiating, and I found out. Yeah, I called Joe.
So you and Joe and Brother Noor and a worldly lawyer were the 4 people that knew about it. What do you know about now?
Confidential.
Oh, okay.
My other nice experience that I have never forgotten was I knocked at the door, and there was looked through the screen door, and a woman was on her hands and knees waxing. And she was literally waxing herself out the front door right into us. She didn't know we were there. Yeah, it was a captive audience. And when she got out the door, she stood up, and there we were. Anyway, this lady was 4'5", and usually she hid behind the couch when witnesses came. So we had a grand discussion, and most witnesses come in the truth. This lady backed into the truth. Yes. And many of the family know her. She and her husband were part of the Betel family about 4 years ago, Alan and Betty Doe. Alan is an architect and served with the engineering department.
Wow.
So that's how she got contacted with the truth.
That's right.
Right. Wow.
And now, Joe, during this time period, what were some of your recollections and your experiences during that time?
Well, we were really busy in the congregation. We were pioneering, and I was a congregation servant, as they called it then. I remember when I had started back to pioneering, and on the first day we went out in service, we met a man, and he came into the truth, serving Jehovah. So we were very grateful for that. That was wonderful for us to remember. Another one was a man that I had studied with. I found out he was opposed. How I found that out with is after I was studying with him a while, he came to Kingdom Hall, and this brother came up to me, and he saw me. He says, "You know who that fellow over there is?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he says, "I was at his door. It was about 6 months ago." And he said, "He chased me away with a gun." He was so opposed. But this is the brother that introduced me to plumbing, which is really why I have the privilege of being here now.
So this man came into the truth.
Yes.
Wow.
And there was another one that the husband was opposed. That really never did scare me very much when I hear the husband is opposed, because everyone I met was so nice. They were like a lamb. But this one here, I was going to have a change, because I was studying with the wife, and my mother-in-law would go with me. And so while at the study, we just finished it. I was standing up, prayer, just getting ready to walk out, and in this guy busts the door practically down and has a tire iron in his hand. He comes in, walks over to me, and just said, "I want you to get out of here." And he starts with this tire iron.
Did he hit you over the head?
Well, probably some of my friends will find out now. Probably that's what's the matter with me. But he really, no, he didn't. I threw my arm up, and so he swung twice, though, and it really smarted, too, I must say. But he finally, it's like a dog. Once they bite you, they leave you alone. It's the same kind of thing. He didn't bother me anymore, but he just said get out, and so we did. But she came into the truth, so we were glad for that.
Now, Barbara, have you had any unusual experiences like Joe did?
Yes, in Florida there were many unusual experiences because of the nature of the territory. I studied with a woman who, the first study I was explaining to her about the name Jehovah. She was Catholic. Her husband was an atheist. He was a zoologist, naturalist. And so when she saw Jehovah in the Bible for the first time, she was so emotional over it. She was so surprised, so happy. And I was busy watching her reaction to this. I was sitting on an overstuffed chair with ruffles down on the bottom of the chair. And all of a sudden, the chair came up. Yes.
The one you're sitting in?
Yes, it came up. And I thought, what is going on? And then it began to move slowly across the room. Well, you know what I thought.
Demons.
Of course, demons. Well, let me tell you what it was. It was a huge Florida sea turtle that was living under the chair. Yes.
What kind of family was this?
Interesting. They had snakes in the bedroom. It was something else. Well, I have the distinction of being one of the few people in this world that's ever rode a turtle. Anyway, the husband was opposed initially, but he then began to show interest. And he kept very strange hours because he was out catching his animals and his snakes and so forth, flying them to the zoos. And he was an evolutionist. So at this time, Dr. Jack Carlton, the brother and doctor at the farm, he moved into our area with his family. And he was pioneering with us. And so he kept weird hours. He was an emergency room doctor. And so since he had believed in evolution, and he also kept these similar hours, they study at 2 in the morning, So Jack studied with this man, and the man came in the truth, and he's an elder today, have 9 children, and they do beautifully. In fact, one of his Bible studies, this man's Bible studies, is part of the Betel family today. He's a family night favorite, Pete Krolchek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you could say he's like my spiritual grandson, right?
Right.
Another nice experience I had, I'll never forget this one. It's very, very unusual. I called at this door. The man told me that he was laid off from work and they had no food in the house. And he was so concerned. I became so concerned. Well, Florida's transient, so you can't supply food to everybody when they have hard times. But I was so moved by his experience, and that I went home, and my mom lived next door, and I raided her freezer with her permission, and ours with Joe's permission, and we took food over to that house, and the man was really shocked, and he was very, very happy. Shortly thereafter, we moved to Tennessee. I never saw him again, and 5 years later, we went back to West Palm Beach on vacation. And at the Kingdom Hall, a gentleman walked up to me and said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, I felt like I never saw him before. He said, "Well, I'm the man you gave the food to." He said, "I'm now your brother." He said, "I studied with the next witnesses that came by."
Oh,
Yes.
what a blessing.
Yes, that was wonderful. Yes. Well, for me, one of the fabulous experiences of my life is being here at Bethel now. At an age where most women are putting their feet up, I'm going at high speed most of the time. I even pass the young ones, I'm always running, it seems like. And it's such a wonderful life to me, and I'm so glad to be part of the Bethel family. But you asked for unusual experiences? Well, let me tell you now, my last, best, only once though, one experience like this for me. When I was married 2 years, I became ill. And there was a brother in our congregation that knew something about medicine, or he thought he did. And he said to me, because I didn't show up in service, I was sick. And he said, Barbara, tell me your symptoms. So I told him my symptoms. He said, "You have worms." Yes, worms. He said, "Everybody in Florida gets worms at one time or another."
Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sick. 8 months later, I gave birth to one long 22-inch squirming worm that we named Lance. Yes.
Come on up, Lance. There he is. Well, he's a little bit taller than 22, or 22 inches.
Yeah, it was long.
Yeah, that's
baby.
right. That's about the right size. So, Lance, now, in the time period that Joe and Barbara were talking to us about, through a lot of their experiences, you were growing up. So we're interested in finding out, what was it like for you growing up in the truth? What were some of your early experiences?
Well, I'd like to begin by saying that I was a pretty good truth baby.
Well, wait a minute now. What about the district overseer's wife?
Oh, well, Sister Saya, Brother Saya and his wife were visiting our house, and she caught me smoking behind our house at 4 years old.
4 years old.
Yeah.
Something else was smoking when I finished with it.
By my mid-teens, I really began to see the futility in life and the need to be in the truth. At 16, I decided to get baptized, and then I set my goals of pioneering in Bethel service. Because it was always a dream of mine to go to Bethel someday.
Right. Now, Lance, tell me, how have you been able to stay single since you've been at Bethel?
Maybe it was the hex. Sorry, Lance.
I was going to say, well, it's not by my choice, I assure you. Well, I've been interested in a few sisters over the years, but it became apparent after a while that, our goals were different. One sister in particular, after courting for a year and being engaged for 2 days, she called it off. I'm sorry, she called off her regular pioneering, and she told me she didn't want to get involved in any more theocratic goals. And of course, I was shocked, and I asked her, well, why? And she said, well, I didn't want to tell you before the engagement because I thought I would lose you. So it really hurt and was quite a shock. But right after that, after we discussed a little bit, I prayed to Jehovah for his direction. And within 2 weeks, she called it off. So it was an interesting experience. But it also helped me to be more cautious for the future.
Now, Lance, you've been here about 10 years now, right? And during that period of time, what different departments have you worked in?
When I first arrived, it was the press room, which was...
Same as your father.
Yeah, same as my father, and so that meant a lot to me. Within 2.5 years, I was invited to 360 to work with elevator maintenance because we had just bought the building, where I've been ever since, working with 9 brothers and 1 sister, that I really enjoy working with.
Now, Joe and Barbara, how was it that you both came to Bethel, which must have been about a year and a half later? How were you invited?
We just came to visit Lance. And so...
Permanent overnight guest?
Well...
My baby left home. I understand.
We were eating breakfast Saturday morning, and I saw the brother that I used to work with in the press room, who was over the press room. So we were just talking about this and that, and so as we were walking away, I said, halfway jokingly, really, I said, you don't need any help here, do you? And he says, well, what do you do? And so I told him, and he said, well, wait a minute. So he went and made 2 calls, and so I had two interviews, and they gave us an application about coming back. It really ruined our vacation.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we didn't know what to think because, here we'd opened our mouths. But anyway, we were glad that we did. And 2 months later, we were back here at Bethel. And it's really been a marvelous privilege because I know at our age, we just thought it wasn't possible. I never even thought about coming back because I knew that I couldn't. And now to be here and to be here as a family, we've thoroughly enjoyed it. I guess you could say it's like the icing on the cake in Jehovah's organization. We thoroughly enjoy Bethel. What a marvelous place to be. What a marvelous group of brothers, too, to be with and to associate with.
Now, I'm curious, as a family, how many letter of recommendations do you have?
We counted about 80 that we had.
It's been a wonderful life.
Boy.
Well, thank you,
We
Joe
thank
Barbara
you
and
so
Lance, for
much.
sharing your experiences.